In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But in 1493, a storm began in Europe. You know the voyage that discovered the New World. But what happened after is a tale rarely told. A lone ship, a raging sea, a crew desperate to survive, and a discovery that could ignite a war. As Columbus races back to Spain, his ship is battered by tempests. His men make a sacred vow in the heart of a storm. And just when safety is in sight, they are taken prisoner by a foreign power, held hostage on a remote island, threatened by a foreign king who claims everything Columbus found belongs to him. The question is, how does Columbus escape this fate? What would he have to do to secure his discovery, and how would this change the course of history as we know it? This isn't just a story of return. It's a journey into betrayal, deception, and the first clash of empires. January 1493. Off the coast of Hispaniola, Christopher Columbus gathers his remaining two ships, the Niña and the Pinta, for the long voyage home. He leaves behind 39 men in a makeshift fort named La Navidad, the first Spanish foothold in the New World. In their holds, the caravels carry tantalizing treasures, a bit of gold dust and jewelry, vividly colored parrots, strange new fruits, and a handful of captive islanders. Columbus knows these meager riches must suffice to prove his triumph. Hope and ambition swell among the crew. Spain's glory and their own fortunes depend on a safe return. With a final look toward the lush island shores, Columbus sets sail for Spain on January 16, 1493, praying that favorable winds and fate will carry his news of a newfound world across the sea. But the Atlantic winter has other plans. Weeks into the journey, the calm seas turn wild. By mid-February, the journey back becomes a nightmare. A monstrous storm roars up from the horizon, blackening the sky. Day and night, ferocious winds and towering waves pound the tiny caravels. Rain lashes like needles, timbers groan. The Niña and Pinta, each barely 50 feet long, are tossed about like driftwood. Crewmen cling to ropes and masts, terrified as water crashes over the decks. In the shrieking gale, Columbus fights to retain hope while the ocean threatens to swallow his ship's hold.
I have risked everything for this discovery. Must it end here, in the belly of the sea? O Lord, spare us. Do not let our precious story of discovery sink into oblivion.
Fearing that all would be lost, Columbus orders a desperate vow. On February 14, 1493, as the Niña climbs one mountainous wave after another, he summons his soaked and frightened crew to their knees. By lantern light, they draw lots and swear pilgrimages in thanks for deliverance should they survive. Columbus himself draws the first lot. He promises to walk to the shrine of Santa Maria de Guadalupe in Spain, carrying a 5-pound candle. Another sailor vows to visit the holy house of Loreto. All together pledge to make a penitential procession to the first church of the Virgin Mary they see on land. Each man whispers his own private vow, preparing for death as the ship reels. The crew's prayers mingle with the howling wind, a final bargaining with God in the face of doom. Still, the storm shows no mercy. Columbus knows their fragile ships could be torn apart at any moment. Determined that his momentous findings not vanish with him, he hurriedly writes a message recounting his voyage and the islands he has found. He seals the parchment in waxed cloth, encloses it in a wooden barrel, and, with a silent prayer, casts it into the raging sea. If the Niña is lost, perhaps the ocean will deliver news of his discovery to Spain. By now, Columbus's fleet has been split in two. The Pinta disappears into the gale, separated from the Niña by the blinding rain and towering swells. Columbus is alone on the Niña, unsure if Martin Pinzon and the Pinta have survived or sunk without a trace.
Have I doomed my men? Pinzon's Pinta was there one moment and gone the next. Santa Maria guided them to safety. If I fail, if none of us lives to tell what we found, who will believe we reached those blessed islands? All the glory, all the gold, lost to the abyss.
On February 15th, just when hope is nearly exhausted, a cry pierces the storm.
Mira hacia adelante. Tierra! Tierra!
Through a break in the rain, sailors spot dark shapes on the horizon. Could it be the Azores? The small Portuguese islands in mid-Atlantic? The men rub salt from their eyes and peer through the mist. Columbus, drenched and exhausted, dares to believe their luck is turning. He recognizes the telltale silhouette of Santa Maria Island, southernmost of the Azores. Relief floods the Nina's deck. They have survived. Scarred by the tempest but still afloat, the Nina makes for the island, seeking refuge and the fulfillment of their sacred vows. At dawn, on February 17th, 1493, the Nina drops anchor off Santa Maria Island. The storm-tossed sailors heave sighs of gratitude. Remembering their promise to the Virgin Mary, Columbus prepares a shore party. Columbus stays aboard, sending half his crew ashore in the ship's small boat to find a chapel of Our Lady. The men, some still limping from their ordeal, trudge to a tiny hillside shrine to offer thanks for their salvation. Dressed humbly and without arms, they kneel in prayer, fulfilling the vow made in the heart of the storm. But just as the Nina's sailors taste solace, a new danger strikes. Without warning, Portuguese soldiers and villagers surround the kneeling men. In a flurry of confusion, swords are drawn. The weary Spanish seamen are seized as prisoners while still clutching their rosaries. On the Nina, Columbus waits and waits, peering anxiously toward shore. Hours pass with no sign of his men returning. Fearing the worst, he hoists anchor and sails the Nina closer to the village. Rounding a rocky point, he sees a startling sight. His missing boat is approaching, but it's filled with armed Portuguese troops. Their commander is Captain João de Castanheira, the island's governor, and he shouts across the water for Columbus to surrender. Columbus's heart hardens. After surviving ocean storms, he now faces human treachery. Castanheira suspects these foreign sailors might be pirates or spies intruding on Portuguese territory. He intends to arrest Columbus, claiming the right as representative of Portugal. The two men confront each other across the waves, Castanheira standing in Columbus's own bobbing longboat, Columbus on the Nina's deck with a handful of loyal men behind him. Rain and wind from the receding storm still whipped the scene, as if nature itself had conspired to deliver Columbus into enemy hands.
I am Christopher Columbus, Admiral of the Ocean Sea, Viceroy of the Indies on behalf of their Catholic Majesties of Castile. By what right do you detain my men? We come in peace. We have discovered new lands for Spain. I demand you release us at once.
Columbus brandishes official letters bearing the royal seals of Ferdinand and Isabella, holding them high for the Portuguese to see. He refuses to let Captain Castanheira come aboard, sensing a trap. The Portuguese captain from his boat refuses to come closer. Columbus refuses to come down. Waves slap between them as each tries to bluff the other into yielding. Tempers flare. Castanheira scoffs at Columbus's titles, shouting that here in the Azores, only the King of Portugal's authority holds sway. He threatens that Columbus and his crew will be taken to face Portuguese justice.
You dare threaten an Admiral of Castile on the high seas. If you do not return my men, I swear by Almighty God, I will not leave this island until I avenge this insult. I will carry 100 of your people in chains back to Spain if I must.
The standoff crackles with tension. For 2 days, Columbus and the Portuguese are at an impasse, the Nina bobbing anxiously offshore while his half-crew languishes under guard on Santa Maria Island. Columbus, furious and unbowed, contemplates battle despite his tiny force. But the weather and his crew's plight dictate caution. Seeing the Nina cannot sail far with so few hands, and unwilling to abandon his men, Columbus ultimately chooses diplomacy over revenge. He maneuvers the Nina to a safer anchorage out of cannon range and opens negotiations. The local priests and notary are ferried out to inspect Columbus's papers. Once they verify his credentials and hear of his historic voyage, their tone softens. Realizing they have detained not pirates but the envoy of Spain's sovereigns, the Portuguese relent. By February 20th, Columbus's captive sailors are freed unharmed. The Niña's full crew is reunited and a tense apology is offered for the misunderstanding. Columbus has won a small but crucial diplomatic victory. He has outwitted Castanheira and avoided bloodshed. After 10 frustrating days at the Azores, Columbus finally weighs anchor on February 23, 1493. The Niña sets sail for Spain once more, escaping the Azores under cover of darkness. Columbus is eager to put Portuguese territory behind him and reach Castile's shores. But the Atlantic winter is not yet finished with the admiral. As the Niña pushes eastward, another sudden storm blows up. The winds howl from the southwest, threatening to drive the caravel far off course or dash her against unseen shoals. The crew, exhausted and nervous after the Azores incident, tighten ropes and pray they have strength for one more trial. For days, the Niña is storm-tossed and nearly demasted by fierce gales. Leaking and tattered, she limps along on ragged sails. Columbus, determined, keeps a steady eastern course whenever the weather allows. At last, as March begins, the tempest relents. The battered Niña sails into the mouth of the Tagus River, the heart of Portugal, seeking refuge. On March 4th, 1493, Columbus anchors in Lisbon's harbor. It is an ironic twist of fate. The Portuguese capital becomes the first European port to welcome the returning explorer. As the Niña glides to a stop beside Lisbon's harbor patrol ship, curious onlookers gather along the docks. News spreads quickly through the city. A Spanish caravel, commanded by the one they call Columbus, has arrived from the west with incredible tales. Columbus stands on deck, weary but filled with pride, as Portuguese officials come aboard. They marvel that his lone ship survived the tempest that had raged across the Atlantic. Indeed, he learns that the very storm which nearly destroyed him sank 100 Portuguese ships along the coasts. Astonishingly, both the Niña and the missing Pinta were spared while so many others perished. To the devout, it seems a sign of divine providence. Columbus's mission is favored by heaven. King John II of Portugal, upon hearing of Columbus's arrival, summons the Genoese navigator to the royal court. Columbus's heart pounds as he travels to meet the Portuguese king at Vale do Paraíso. He knows that his voyage trespassed dangerously close to Portugal's claims. Under the Treaty of Alcáçovas, 1479, Spain and Portugal had divided the Atlantic, and the Portuguese king now questions whether Columbus has violated that treaty by sailing to lands that Portugal might deem its own. Dressed in his sea-stained doublet, but carrying himself with the dignity of an admiral, Columbus enters John II's presence. The two men regard each other warily. John is a seasoned monarch who once rejected Columbus's plans. Now Columbus returns a hero under a rival's flag. In a cautious, polite interview, Columbus relates the story of his voyage to King John II. He describes the islands he found far to the west, lands he insists lie within Spain's domain, and were unknown to any European monarch. John II listens intently, absorbing the astonishing news that a western route to India might have been found. Yet the Portuguese king's eyes narrow at the mention of rich islands, gold, and strange peoples. He reminds Columbus that all lands south and west of the Canary Islands were granted to Portugal by papal decree and treaty. Might these new islands fall under that right? Columbus, though respectful, stands firm. He argues that the lands he found lie in territories not specified in any treaty. They belong to Spain by right of discovery and God's blessing. The atmosphere is tense. Courtiers hold their breath. Will the Portuguese monarch detain Columbus and claim his discoveries for himself? Some of Columbus's advisors had feared exactly this scenario.
I would sooner die than surrender what I have found to any but my own sovereigns. These islands are under Spain's holy mandate. I pray your highness will rejoice with me in what mankind has achieved, rather than contest it.
King John II is shrewd. He knows that seizing Columbus or his cargo could spark a major conflict with Spain. So, after a day of delicate diplomacy, he decides to let Columbus go on his way, for now. The king offers courteous words and modest gifts, but he also pointedly informs Columbus that he will be writing to the Spanish sovereigns about Portugal's rights. Columbus departs the Portuguese court with a mix of relief and lingering unease. He has survived storms, starvation, and even imprisonment, but the political tempest is only beginning. As he makes ready to sail the Niña for Spain, he is keenly aware that his discoveries have set Spain and Portugal on a collision course over imperial claims. On March 15, 1493, the Niña finally arrives at Palos de la Frontera, the same Spanish port from which she had sailed 7 months before. Columbus steps ashore to the exuberant shouts of villagers and the tearful embraces of loved ones. He has done it. Against all odds, he has returned to Spain as a hero. Not long after, the Pinta limps into port as well, having survived the Atlantic fury on her own. Captain Martín Pinzón, who had commanded the Pinta, had reached Spain a few days earlier at a port in Galicia and rushed to tell the tale. But legend says Pinzón found himself upstaged. Columbus's triumphant arrival overshadowed all else. In truth, Pinzón would fall gravely ill and die within weeks, leaving Columbus unchallenged in claiming the glory and rewards of the voyage. Word of Columbus's return spreads like wildfire. He and his crew travel overland to Barcelona, where the Catholic monarchs, Queen Isabella I and King Ferdinand II, hold court. Along the journey, common folk line the roads to gape at the procession. For Columbus does not travel empty-handed. He brings with him the wonders of the Indies. It is a spectacle Europe has never seen, an emissary returning from lands beyond the edge of the world. When Columbus enters the Great Hall in Barcelona in April 1493, a hush falls. Clad now in dignified robes, he approaches the throne where Isabella and Ferdinand wait under a canopy of state. The assembled nobles of Spain regard him with awe. Here is the man who ventured into the ocean sea and returned to tell the tale. Columbus kneels, and the sovereigns bid him rise as Don Cristobal Colón, Admiral of the Ocean Sea, the title they granted him before his voyage. Tears glisten in Isabella's eyes as Columbus formally presents the fruits of his journey. He unfurls banners captured on the new islands, lays out the gold trinkets and pearls at their feet, and gestures to the timid Taino captives by his side. These 6 souls, shy, bewildered, dressed now in European garments, are living proof of his claims. Gasps of astonishment ripple through the court. The New World, though they do not yet call it that, has been brought into the halls of Spain.
Your Majesties, by the grace of God, I have reached the lands to the west that I sought. Here I present to you the peoples and riches of those islands. I found them, as you see, gentle, unschooled in our ways, and open to our holy faith. The lands are fertile beyond imagination. Hispaniola is a miracle. Its mountains and rivers brim with gold, its fields with spices. I took possession of these isles for the crown, and I pledge there is much more to discover.
Columbus speaks with charisma and conviction. He insists that he has reached Asia, the islands off the coast of the great empire of China. He describes Cuba and Hispaniola as if they were Chipango, Japan, or Cathay, embellishing their wealth. Though in truth he found no spices like pepper or cloves, he extols a local plant called aji, pepper, as more valuable than black pepper. He admits he did not meet the Grand Khan, but he firmly believes the Asian mainland lies just beyond the islands he explored. The king and queen listen, enraptured. In that throne room, no one doubts Columbus. He is lauded as the admiral who opened a new route to the Indies, fulfilling the prophecy of Spain's greatness. As Columbus recounts the voyage, there are moments of solemnity. He reports that one of his ships, the Santa Maria, was lost on a reef, and that he left men behind in a small fortress to hold Spain's claim. He speaks of the kindness of certain native chiefs who helped him, and he does not shy away from mentioning the hardships, the storms, the hunger, the uncertainty of sailing into the unknown. To the sovereigns, these struggles only heighten the glory of his achievement. At the story of the Great Storm and the miraculous survival of the Niña and Pinta, Queen Isabella crosses herself, and King Ferdinand murmurs that truly divine providence watches over this enterprise. Yet, amid the celebration and Columbus's flowery descriptions, darker undercurrents are already present. Columbus frankly mentions that the native people are vulnerable, lacking modern weapons or even iron. He notes how easily they were befriended and subdued. In his official report, he writes that the islanders are so naive and free with their possessions that no one who has not seen them would believe it. He adds that with just a small force, they could be kept under control. In fact, in his personal journal, Columbus had chillingly observed the very first time he met these people. With 50 men, they can all be subjugated and made to do what is required of them. These words are not spoken aloud in the throne room, but the mindset of conquest has already taken root. Columbus's actions bear it out. He has already taken slaves, the Taino youths now displayed in the royal court, and he suggests they could learn Spanish and serve as interpreters or servants in the new colonies. The court sees these captives as exotic innocents to be converted to Christianity, but to Columbus and to Spain, they are also subjects to be ruled. The seeds of an empire are being sown. In 1493, Columbus's word is accepted as truth. He is the admiral who sailed to Chipango and Cathay by a new route. He has proven that one can reach the wealth of the Indies by sailing west. No one realizes that an entirely uncharted pair of continents lies between Asia and Europe's ships. In courts from London to Rome, from Lisbon to Paris, rulers contemplate how they might share in Spain's sudden windfall, or challenge it. Christopher Columbus's return has set in motion a tidal wave of events. The jubilant illusion that he found a new path to Asia will soon give way to startling revelations, and with them, an era of colonization unprecedented in scope. But on this day, as Columbus basks in royal favor and readies his next voyage, there is a sense of destiny and manifest entitlement. The age of discovery has begun, and with it, the first chapters of conquest are being written. The admiral takes leave of the Spanish court amid cheers and adulation. Spain prepares eagerly for his second voyage, dreaming of more gold, more souls to claim for God, and greater realms to rule. Columbus will return to the western seas, not as a lone explorer, but as the head of an armada. The world he set foot upon, still believed to be Asia, is about to be transformed. As his caravels are readied for departure, an empire's hunger grows. Columbus's triumph has lit a fire that cannot be quenched, a fire of exploration, exploitation, and empire. What began as a quest for a trade route has become an unstoppable journey of conquest. And so, as Columbus embarks once more, the New World and its people stand unknowingly on the brink of irrevocable change. The ocean crossings will continue. The age of conquest is dawning. The admiral's return in 1493 is not an end, but a beginning, the prelude to a saga of empire that will reshape the world forever. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below on what you would like to learn about next.